The council chamber felt colder than the mountain winds outside. Rasha kept her eyes down as the elders circled her, their massive wings casting shadows across the stone floor. Her own wings, smaller and darker than theirs, tucked tight against her back in shame. "You bring dishonor to Sky Crest," Elder Darak said. His voice echoed off the carved walls. "3 times you failed the fire trial. 3 times. Rasha wanted to explain that her flames were different, not weaker. They burned slower, hotter in the center, perfect for melting metals or warming soil. But the elders would not care. They wanted explosive power, not precise heat. "I can contribute in other ways," she said quietly. "I have studied the old texts about cultivation and growth." The other elders hissed. One of them, a scarred female named Petra, stepped closer. "Growth? You speak of dirt and seeds while our warriors defend the skies. You are no true dragon." The words cut deeper than claws. Rasha felt her throat tighten, but forced herself to stay calm. She had known this moment would come. Her interests had always set her apart. While other young dragons practiced aerial combat, she read about ancient farming methods. While they hunted in packs, she tended small gardens in hidden valleys. "The old ways speak of dragons who worked the land." Rasha tried again. "Before we became sky warriors, we were caretakers of enough." Darak raised one massive claw. "The council has decided. You're cast out. Your clan marks will be removed. You will leave Sky Crest before the next sunrise." Rasha felt her legs tremble. Exile meant more than leaving home. It meant losing her identity, her history, everything that connected her to her ancestors. Dragons without clans were ghosts, wandering between worlds with no place to rest. The removal ceremony was brief and painful. Hot irons burned away the intricate patterns on her shoulders, the marks that identified her as Sky Crestborn. Rasha bit down on a leather strap to keep from crying out. She would not give them the satisfaction of hearing her pain. By dawn, she stood at the edge of the mountain plateau with nothing but a small pack and an old survey ship she had bought with her savings. The vessel was barely flight-worthy, its hull patched in a dozen places, but it had a navigation computer and enough fuel to reach the outer colonies. Rasha climbed into the cramped cockpit and sealed the hatch. Through the viewport, she could see other dragons launching into the morning sky, their scales glittering like gems. None looked her way. She was already forgotten. The ship rattled and groaned as she lifted off. Rasha had taught herself to fly these machines by reading manuals, though her clan had mocked the skill as beneath a true dragon. Now it was the only thing keeping her alive. She punched coordinates into the navigation system at random, choosing the farthest destination she could afford. The display showed a planet called Verdant Ridge, marked as an abandoned agricultural colony. Perfect. A place where nobody would ask questions or expect her to breathe fire on command. The journey took 17 days. Rasha spent the time reading everything she could find about farming. The ship's database was old, but contained thousands of files on crop cultivation, soil management, and greenhouse construction. She absorbed it all, hungry for knowledge that might help her survive. Verdant Ridge appeared as a green and blue marble against black space. Scans showed no active settlements, no communication signals, nothing but empty structures and wild vegetation. Rasha guided her ship down through thick clouds, searching for a safe landing spot. The abandoned colony spread across a river valley like bones of some ancient creature. Dome structures made of transparent material dotted the landscape, most still intact. Between them ran irrigation channels, now overgrown with native plants. Equipment rusted in fields that had gone wild years ago. Rasha landed near the largest dome and stepped out onto alien soil. The air was breathable, rich with moisture and the smell of growing things. Her feet sank slightly into dark earth that looked nothing like the rocky mountains of home. The dome entrance hung open. Inside, Rasha found row after row of planting beds, all empty now except for weeds. At the far end sat a control station covered in dust. When she wiped the screen clean, it flickered to life, showing files in a language she did not recognize at first. It took her 3 hours to find a translation program. The previous inhabitants called themselves Chittick, an insectoid species that had built this farming colony over a century ago. Their records showed successful harvests for decades before they suddenly abandoned everything. No explanation, just a final log entry that read, "We go to join the Earth itself." Strange words, but Rasha had no time to puzzle over them. She had more practical concerns. The control system still worked. The dome's environmental controls responded to her touch. Water pumps hummed to life when she activated them. Best of all, she found a seed vault in the dome's basement, temperature-controlled and still sealed. Rasha spent the next week exploring the colony, claiming the largest dome as her home. She cleared planting beds, repaired irrigation lines, and studied the Chittick growing manuals until her eyes burned. At night, she slept on a makeshift bed in the control room, listening to unfamiliar insects chirp in the darkness. On the 8th day, she planted her first seeds. Her claws were not made for delicate work, but she managed to press each seed into the soil at the correct depth. The manual said these were basic vegetables, hardy and fast-growing, good for beginners. Rasha sat back on her heels and looked at the freshly planted rows. Her shoulders ached where her clan marks had been burned away. Her wings felt too small and useless. But here, in this quiet dome on a forgotten world, none of that mattered. She would make something grow. She would prove that her way had value, even if no other dragon would ever see it. The soil was dark and rich beneath her claws, full of possibility. 3 months of backbreaking work had taught Rasha that farming was harder than any training her clan had ever put her through. Her first crops had sprouted, grown a few inches, then turned yellow and died. The second planting did slightly better, but produced vegetables so small and bitter she could barely eat them. She stood in the dome, staring at rows of struggling plants, when she heard the ship engines. The sound made her freeze. Nobody knew she was here. Nobody should be landing on an abandoned world. Rasha grabbed a farming tool, a long blade used for cutting thick stems, and ran outside. A transport vessel was descending through the clouds, trailing smoke from one engine. It was not a military ship or a corporate cruiser, just a small cargo hauler, the kind independent traders used. The ship hit the ground hard about 200 yards from her dome. Metal screamed as the landing gear buckled. More smoke poured from the damaged engine. Rasha approached cautiously, weapon ready, not sure what to expect. The hatch opened with a hiss of escaping air. A figure stumbled out, coughing and waving smoke away from his face. Human. Male. Wearing a stained jumpsuit with patches sewn over the knees. He was not very tall by human standards. With dark skin and hair that was going gray at the temples, he saw Rasha and stopped dead. His eyes went wide. She realized what she must look like to him. A dragon woman nearly 7 feet tall with crimson scales and small wings, holding what probably looked like a weapon. "Please do not eat me," he said, raising both hands. "I taste terrible. Too much coffee and not enough vegetables." Rasha blinked. That was not the reaction she had expected. "I do not eat people." "Oh, good. That is really good news." He lowered his hands slightly, but kept them visible. "My navigation system died about an hour ago. I was aiming for the research station on Kepler's Hope, but I guess I'm not there. You are on Verdant Ridge. There is no research station here." The human looked around at the domes and overgrown fields. "Huh, there is definitely something here, though. Agricultural colony. Was. Now it is just me." He studied her for a long moment, then seemed to make a decision. "I am Owen Rivers, former agricultural engineer, currently a very lost transport pilot. My ship is not flying anywhere until I replace that engine coupling, which could take weeks if I can even fabricate the parts." Rasha did not lower the farming blade. "They're empty domes. Take one. Stay out of my way." "Fair enough." Owen grabbed a bag from his damaged ship and started walking toward the nearest dome. He made about 10 steps before he stopped and turned back. "Those are food crops you're growing, right? In the big dome. Trying to grow. They keep dying." Owen walked closer, slowly, like he was approaching a nervous animal. He stopped at the dome entrance and looked inside at her struggling plants. His expression changed, became focused in a way that reminded Rasha of how she felt when reading. "Can I look at your soil?" he asked. Why? Because I spent 20 years helping people grow food on worlds that did not want anything to grow. Old habit. Rasha hesitated, then stepped aside. Owen walked to the nearest planting bed and knelt down. He scooped up a handful of dark earth and squeezed it, watching how it crumbled through his fingers. Then he sniffed it. Your pH is way off, he said, and you have almost no nitrogen. The Chittick who lived here before, they were insectoid, right? Yes. How did you know? These beds are designed for their biology. Insectoid species process nutrients differently. Their waste products probably kept the nitrogen levels balanced. Without them, the soil is missing key elements. Rasha felt a spark of hope. Can it be fixed? Owen stood up and brushed dirt from his hands. Absolutely. We need to start composting, add some organic matter, maybe plant some nitrogen-fixing cover crops between your food plants. It will take time, but it is not complicated. He shrugged. I'm going to be stuck here for weeks anyway. Might as well do something useful. Unless you would rather I stay in my dome and starve while you figure it out alone. Rasha considered this. She had been alone for 3 months, struggling with problems she did not fully understand. Pride said she should refuse help. But the practical part of her, the part her clan had always dismissed, knew that turning down expert knowledge would be stupid. Fine, but you work for your food, and stay out of the control room. That is mine. Deal. Owen grinned. Do you have any kitchen scraps? Dead plant matter? Anything organic. They spent the rest of the day building a compost pile. Owen explained how decomposition worked, how bacteria broke down organic matter into nutrients plants could use. He talked about carbon to nitrogen ratios and moisture levels, and Rasha found herself listening with the same hunger she had felt reading the Chittick manuals. By evening, they had a system. Rasha would save all food waste and plant trimmings. Owen would turn the pile every few days and monitor the temperature. In a few weeks, they would have rich compost to mix into the soil. They ate together in awkward silence, sharing the small bitter vegetables Rasha had managed to grow. Owen did not complain about the taste. So what is a dragon doing on an abandoned farm world? He asked finally. What is a human agricultural engineer doing flying cargo ships? Owen laughed. Fair point. We both have our stories, I guess. Rasha nodded. She was not ready to talk about her exile, about the burned-away clan marks that still ache sometimes. But having another person here, someone who understood growing things, made the loneliness feel less heavy. Over the next week, they worked side by side. Owen taught her about crop rotation and companion planting. Rasha showed him the Chittick manuals, and together they translated sections that the computer had missed. The plants began to respond, growing stronger and greener. Night. Rasha would see lights in Owen's dome and wonder about his story. But she did not ask, and he did not volunteer. They had an unspoken agreement to focus on the work, on making things grow in this forgotten place. It was enough for now. The changes started small. Rasha noticed it first while checking the irrigation system one evening. Certain sections of the planting beds glowed faintly, a soft blue-green light that pulsed like a slow heartbeat. She thought her eyes were playing tricks after a long day of work, but the next night, the glow was stronger, and the plants in those sections had grown noticeably larger than their neighbors. Owen, she called across the dome. Come look at this. He jogged over, carrying a soil testing kit he had assembled from spare parts. When he saw the glowing earth, he went very still. That is not normal, he said. I know that. Owen knelt and held his hand above the luminescent soil. It is warm, not hot, just a few degrees above the surrounding area. He pulled out a small scanner. Radiation levels are normal. No toxic readings. Whatever is making it glow is not immediately dangerous. They stood in the dim dome, watching the gentle pulse of light beneath the plants. It was beautiful in a strange way, like watching stars reflected in water. The Chittick left suddenly, Rasha said. Their last log said something about joining the earth. I remember. I thought it was poetic language. Owen frowned. Maybe it was literal. Over the next few days, they observed the glowing sections carefully. The effect spread slowly, appearing in new areas where they had recently added compost. The plants there grew twice as fast and produced vegetables that tasted incredible, sweet, and rich compared to the bland crops from normal soil. Owen collected samples and spent hours examining them under a makeshift microscope he built from ship parts. What he found made no sense according to standard biology. There are crystalline structures in the soil, he told Rasha. Tiny formations, almost like circuits. They seem to react to organic matter, to life itself. Alive, maybe, or something close to it. They are not like any mineral I have studied. Rasha felt a chill run down her spine. Her clan had stories about living worlds, planets that possessed a form of consciousness. Most dragons dismissed such tales as myths. But standing here, watching the earth pulse with light, those old stories felt suddenly real. They decided to dig deeper, literally. Owen brought tools from his ship, and they carefully excavated one of the glowing sections. A foot down, the crystals became visible to the naked eye, forming intricate networks that branched like tree roots or blood vessels 2 feet down. The crystals were as thick as Rasha's fingers, glowing bright enough to read by 3 feet down. They found something that made them both stop breathing. The crystals formed patterns. Deliberate, organized patterns that looked like writing or circuit diagrams. They pulsed in sequence, as if information was flowing through them. "This is technology," Owen whispered. "Ancient technology, but still functional." Rasha reached down and touched one of the larger crystals. It felt warm and smooth under her scaled fingers. The moment she made contact, the pulsing intensified. Light flowed from the crystal she touched, racing along the network in waves. Then, without warning, the crystal in her hand projected an image into the air above the excavation that a Chittick appeared, rendered in blue holographic light. The insectoid alien was wearing work clothes similar to what Owen wore. It stood in the same dome, or one very like it, surrounded by thriving crops. The figure gestured and spoke, but no sound came out. "The projection system is damaged," Owen said, "or we're missing components." The Chittick's image showed more scenes. The colony at its peak, with dozens of the insectoid farmers working together. The domes full of incredible harvests. Then the image changed. The Chittick began to glow from within, the same blue-green as the crystals. One by one, they walked into the fields and simply merged with the earth, their bodies dissolving into light that flowed into the crystal network. Rasha jerked her hand away from the crystal. The projection vanished. "They became part of the planet," she said. Voluntarily. Owen was frantically taking notes. "This is not natural geology. Someone built this, engineered it. A terraforming system, maybe, designed to bond with biological caretakers." They spent the next week carefully extracting crystal samples and attempting to access more information. The fragments would glow in their hands, but produced no more projections. Whatever archive existed in the network, it was not giving up its secrets easily. Then Owen discovered something while running chemical analyses. "The crystals are dying," he said, showing Rasha his data. "Look at these readings. The ones closest to where we have been working are healthy, but the network extending beyond the farm is deteriorating. Why? I think they need biological input. The Chittick maintained them just by living and working here. When they left or joined the network or whatever they did, there was nobody to sustain the system." Rasha looked out at the abandoned colony. Miles of empty domes and dead fields stretched to the horizon. "How much of the planet does this network cover?" Owen checked his scanner. "If these readings are accurate, the entire valley. Maybe more. This is not just a farming trick. This is planetary-scale engineering." That night, Rasha could not sleep. She kept thinking about the Chittick, about their choice to merge with the earth they had worked so hard to cultivate. Was it voluntary? A religious practice? Or had something gone wrong with the system? She walked out into the fields onto the stars. The crystal glow was visible now even from the surface, creating pools of soft light among the rows. She thought about her own exile, about being cast out for not fitting the mold her clan demanded. The Chittick had found a way to belong completely, to become one with their world. Rasha had only just started to make this place feel like home, that if the crystals were dying, what would happen to the planet? To the fragile ecosystem she and Owen were beginning to understand, she did not have answers. But she knew they needed to dig deeper, to find out what the Chittick had discovered and why they had made such a drastic choice. Owen cracked the code on the third week. He had been running the crystal fragments through every analysis tool he could build or improvise, trying to find a way to access the information locked inside. The breakthrough came when he combined a biological sample with the crystal matrix. "Rasha, you need to see this right now," he shouted from his makeshift lab in the smaller dome. She ran over to find him holding a crystal fragment that blazed with light. He had it connected to a series of wires and what looked like parts from his ship's computer. "I gave it what it wanted," he said, eyes bright with excitement. "A drop of my blood." The crystals are designed to interface with living biology. They need that connection to fully activate. You put your blood on alien technology without knowing what it would do. In my defense, I was very careful about it. Owen grinned. And it worked. Look, the crystal projected a much clearer hologram this time. The Chittick farmer appeared again, but now they could hear a voice. It spoke in the clicking language of the insectoids, but Owen's computer translated in real time. "If you're seeing this, then someone has returned to work the Earth. We hope you will understand what we learned too late." The image shifted to show technical diagrams of the crystal network. This system was built by the architects, a species that disappeared 10,000 years ago. They created living, terraforming networks across hundreds of worlds. The crystals bond with biological caretakers, learning from them, growing stronger through diversity. Rasha leaned closer. "Diversity?" The Chittick continued. "We thought one species would be enough. We were wrong. The network needs variety, different forms of life working together. Alone, we could only sustain a fraction of its potential." The crystals began to fail, to die back. The hologram showed the crystal network deteriorating, the glow fading in sections. "We made a choice. Rather than abandon this world, we joined with it completely. Our consciousness merged with the network. Our bodies transformed into energy that would feed the system. We became the Earth we had worked." Owen and Rasha exchanged looks. The horror of it was starting to sink in. "But even this was not enough," the Chittick said. "One species, even fully integrated, cannot provide the biological complexity the architects intended. The network will continue to die unless multiple forms of life tend it together. We leave this message as a warning and a hope." The image changed to show a thriving world, with dozens of different species working fields side by side. This is what the architects envisioned. Unity through cultivation. Life supporting life across all its varied forms. If you have the courage to stay, to work together despite your differences, you can restore what we could not. The hologram flickered. "But know this, if the network dies completely, the planetary ecosystem will collapse. The architects designed these worlds as integrated systems. Without the crystal network, the soil will turn to dust, the water will poison, and nothing will grow here again. You hold the fate of an entire world in your hands." The projection ended. The crystal went dark in Owen's palm. They sat in silence for a long time. Rasha felt the weight of the revelation pressing down on her. An entire world's survival, depending on whether they could convince others to come here and farm. "We need more people," Owen said finally. "Different species. The crystal network is responding to us working together, but it is not enough. We are only two. Who would come to an abandoned world to farm?" Rasha asked. "Most beings want cities, trade routes, civilization." Owen stood and started pacing. "People like us. Outcasts. Those who do not fit anywhere else. The galaxy is full of them." Rasha thought about her exile, about the burn marks on her shoulders. "You think we can just send a message asking for rejects, and they will come?" "Not just rejects. People looking for a fresh start, a place where they can be themselves." He turned to face her. "You came here because you needed somewhere you could grow things without being judged. I am here because I crashed, but I stayed because this work matters to me. There are others like us. And if they do not come, if we cannot get enough diversity," Owen gestured at the darkened crystal, "then everything the Chittick sacrificed will be for nothing. This planet will die." Rasha walked to the dome's transparent wall and looked out at the fields. The crystal glow was fading in the far sections, the light dimming day by day. She could feel the urgency of it, the ticking clock of a dying world. "I do not know how to ask for help," she said quietly. "My clan taught me that needing others is weakness." "Then let me write the message," Owen said. "I'm good with words." They spent the next 2 days crafting a transmission. Owen kept it simple and honest. He explained what they had found, what the world needed to survive. He made no promises except hard work and the chance to be part of something important. "We are not offering paradise," the message said. "We are offering purpose. A dying world needs caretakers from many species working together. If you have nowhere else to go, if you're tired of fitting into boxes that were not made for you, come to Verdant Ridge. Help us save something beautiful." Rasha added her own line at the end. "Here, what made you different makes you valuable." They broadcast the message on multiple frequencies, aimed at refugee stations, independent colonies, anywhere beings gathered who did not quite belong. Then they waited. "Nobody will come," Rasha said on the third day. Owen checked his ship's communication array. "Have some faith. The galaxy is bigger than you think." On the fifth day, they got their first response. A single line of text, Trillic refugee ship requesting landing coordinates. "We have nowhere else to go." Rasha read the message 3 times, not quite believing it. Someone had answered. Someone was coming. Owen hooped and grabbed her in a hug she did not quite know how to return. "See? I told you. This is just the start." She hoped he was right, because below their feet, the crystal network pulsed weakly, waiting for the diversity it needed to survive. Pola emerged from the refugee ship with webbed hands raised in a gesture of peace. The Trillic stood barely 5 feet tall, with smooth amphibious skin that shifted between blue and green depending on the light. Large eyes blinked slowly as they surveyed the farm. "You are really letting me stay." Pola's voice was soft, uncertain. "If you are willing to work," Rasha said. "The soil does not care about your past." Pola's skin flushed a darker blue. What Owen's database said was a sign of relief in Trillic biology. "My colony would not accept my gender identity. They said I was broken. I've been traveling for months, looking for anywhere that would take me." "You are not broken," Owen said firmly, "and you are welcome here." They gave Pola the third dome and explained about the crystal network, the dying planet, the need for biological diversity. The Trillic listened carefully, occasionally running webbed fingers over the glowing crystal samples. "My people have legends about living worlds," Polis said. "We thought they were just stories." "Stories have a way of being true," Rasha replied. Within days, Pola proved invaluable. Trillic had an instinctive understanding of water systems, and the Chittick irrigation network that had baffled Rasha and Owen suddenly made perfect sense to them. Pola could sense moisture levels in soil just by touching it, could predict weather patterns by tasting the air. The crystal network responded immediately. The globe brightened in sections Pola worked, creating new patterns that incorporated the Trillic's biological signature. It was like watching a puzzle piece slot into place. 2 weeks later, a battered cargo hauler landed carrying a pair of Rothian siblings. Bront and Kessa were massive beings covered in thick fur, standing nearly 8 feet tall on their hind legs. They had refused military conscription on their homeworld and been declared traitors. "We do not want to fight anymore," Bront said, his deep voice rumbling. "We just want to build something." "Then you came to the right place," Owen said. The Rothians brought strength the settlement desperately needed. They could move equipment Rasha struggled with, could dig deeper than anyone else. But more than that, they understood deep-root systems. Their people had cultivated massive underground fungi gardens, and that knowledge translated perfectly to working with the crystal network's deeper layers. Kessa discovered that the crystals extended down hundreds of feet, forming connections between surface crops and underground water sources. With the Rothians digging and Pola managing water flow, they could revitalize sections of the farm that had been dead for decades. The arrivals kept coming. A human family of 5 whose colony had gone bankrupt showed up in a ship held together with welds and hope. A lone sector, an insectoid species distantly related to the Chittick, arrived seeking connection to their ancient cousins. A pair of young beings from a species nobody could identify stumbled in after their navigation failed. Each new arrival brought unique knowledge. The human children, surprisingly, were experts at pest control, having grown up on a failing agricultural world. The sector understood pollination in ways that revolutionized their crop yields. The unidentified species turned out to have a gift for soil chemistry. Rasha found herself in an unexpected role. The newcomers looked to her for guidance, for decisions about how the settlement should function. She had never led anyone, had been told her whole life she was not strong enough for leadership. But Owen saw what she could not. "You are not leading through dominance," he told her one evening as they watched the various species working together in the fields. "You're leading by making them feel safe to be themselves. That is a different kind of strength." The crystal network blazed brighter than ever. At night, the entire valley glowed with soft light, visible from orbit. The patterns in the crystals grew more complex, incorporating biological signatures from a dozen different species. Plants grew faster and stronger. The soil itself seemed more alive, but with success came challenges. The Rothians and the sector had a territorial dispute over a particular section of the greenhouse. Some of the humans were uncomfortable around Rasha's dragon form. Pola struggled with the dry climate and needed special accommodations. Rasha called the first community meeting in the central dome. 15 beings from 8 different species gathered, looking at her expectantly. "We are all here because we did not fit somewhere else," she began. "Our differences were seen as problems. But this world needs those differences. The crystals need diversity to survive." She gestured at the glowing soil beneath their feet. "That means we have to make this work. We have to find ways to live together that honor what makes each of us unique. It will not always be easy." The discussions went late into the night. They established work schedules that respected different species' needs, created shared spaces and private ones, developed communication protocols for beings who perceive the world in very different ways. That IT was messy and complicated and nothing like the rigid hierarchy Rasha had known in her clan. But at work point 3 months after the first settlers arrived, the crystal network reached a tipping point. The glow spread beyond the immediate farm, racing across the valley in waves of light. Dormant sections awakened. The planet itself seemed to take a deep breath and come alive. Owen monitored the readings with tears in his eyes. "It is stabilizing. The network is regenerating. We did it." That night, they gathered all the settlers for a celebration. Different species brought food from their own cultures, creating a feast that was chaotic and beautiful. Rasha watched them eat and laugh and argue and work together, and felt something shift in her chest. This was not her clan. These are not her people by blood, but they were her people by choice, and that meant more than she had ever imagined. Pola came and stood beside her. "You look thoughtful." "I was cast out for being too interested in growing things," Rasha said, "for caring about the wrong things. And now I am here, on a living world, surrounded by others who were cast out too. Maybe being cast out was the best thing that happened to us," Pola said softly. Rasha looked out at the glowing fields, at the impossible community they had built. Maybe it was. But even as she said it, a warning signal flashed on Owen's monitoring equipment. A ship had entered orbit. Not a refugee vessel or a cargo hauler. This one had weapons. The Sky Crest Clan ship descended through the atmosphere like a falling star. Rasha recognized the hull markings immediately. Her stomach twisted as the vessel landed in the center of the settlement, crushing a section of newly planted crops under its landing gear. The hatch opened and Elder Durak stepped out, flanked by 6 warrior dragons. Their scales gleamed in the crystal light. Their wings spread wide in a display of dominance. Behind them came younger clan members, their eyes scanning the settlement with curiosity and contempt. Durak's gaze found Rasha. "So this is where the exile has been hiding." Rasha stepped forward, aware of the entire settlement watching. Owen stood at her shoulder, his hand resting on a farming tool that could serve as a weapon if needed. The other settlers gathered behind them, a united front of different species. "I am not hiding. This is my home." Rasha kept her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Home?" Durak laughed, the sound harsh. You call this collection of weaklings and outcasts a home? I call it a waste. Why are you here? Rasha asked. Derak's expression turned calculating. We tracked your signature across the stars. Took us months to find this forgotten rock. Imagine my surprise when our scans detected energy readings that dwarf most power stations. He gestured at the glowing fields. You have found something valuable, little Rasha. Something that could make Sky Crest the most powerful clan in the sector. The crystals cannot be moved or weaponized, Owen said. They are a terraforming network, not a power source. Then we will claim the world itself. Derak moved closer, his massive form casting Rasha in shadow. You will return with us and bring this technology under clan control. This is not a request. No. The word came out stronger than Rasha expected. Derak's eyes narrowed. You refuse a direct order from your elder? You're not my elder anymore. You exile me, remember? You burn away my clan marks and called me worthless. A decision I am willing to reconsider, given what you have found here. Rasha felt anger rising in her chest, hotter than any fire she had ever breathed. You do not want me. You want what I built. You want to take something beautiful and turn it into a weapon or a resource to exploit. Watch your tongue, exile. She is not an exile. Bront stepped forward, the massive Rothian placing himself beside Rasha. She is our leader. One by one, the other settlers moved forward. Polo with their shifting skin colors. The human family with their children. The sector. Every being who had found refuge here. These crystals require cooperation, diversity, respect for life. Owen said, everything your clan is not. You cannot make this work if you tried. Derak snarled. Then we will take it by force. Stand aside or be removed. The crystal network reacted before anyone could move. Light surged up from the ground, flowing through the fields in waves. It formed a barrier around the settlement, a wall of blue-green energy that hummed with power. Derak stepped back, startled. What is this? Rasha felt the connection in her bones. The network was responding to the threat, to the unified defense of all the species working together. She understood suddenly that the architect had designed this protection, built it into the very foundation of the system. The network defends those who care for it, she said. You cannot take it because it does not belong to anyone. We belong to it. The barrier pulsed, and within its light, images appeared. The crystal network projected visions directly into the minds of all present. Derak saw himself as the crystals perceived him, isolated, rigid, surrounded by walls of his own making. His clan shrinking, declining, dying slowly from their refusal to change. Then the vision shifted to show what Rasha had built. Species from across the galaxy working together, their differences creating strength rather than weakness. A thriving community that honored each being's unique gifts. A world coming back to life. The younger dragons in Derak's group watched the visions with wide eyes. One of them, a female named Sora, stepped away from the warriors. I want to stay, she said quietly. Derak whirled on her. You would betray your clan? I would choose life over pride. Sora looked at Rasha. Is there room for more? Always, Rasha said. Two more young dragons broke ranks, moving to stand with Sora. Derak's face contorted with rage, but the barrier prevented him from reaching them. You have stolen my clan members. I have given them a choice, Rasha corrected. Something you never did. The barrier began to push outward, gently but firmly forcing Derak and his remaining warriors back toward their ship. The crystal network had made its decision. Those who would harm it were not welcome. Derak fought the pressure, his wings beating furiously, but the light was inexorable. This is not over, Rasha. Sky Crest does not forget. Neither do I, she replied. I remember every word you said when you exiled me. How I was too weak, too different, too interested in the wrong things. You were right about me being different, but you were wrong about it being weakness. The barrier forced Derak and his warriors into their ship. The engines fired and the vessel lifted off, leaving scorched earth where it had landed. The barrier remained until the ship cleared the atmosphere, then faded back into the ground. Rasha stood in the settling dust, surrounded by her community. The three young dragons who had stayed approached hesitantly. "We do not know how to farm," Sora admitted. "That is all right," Owen said with a grin. "We are all learning together." Over the following weeks, they repaired the damage from the landing and integrated the new arrivals. The young dragons brought unexpected skills: precise temperature control for greenhouses, aerial surveys of the growing crystal network, and a fierce dedication to proving their choice had been right. The settlement grew. More ships arrived, drawn by stories of a place where differences were valued. They registered officially as New Haven, an independent colony under the protection of the Crystal Network. Rasha stood in the fields one evening, watching the sun set over land that glowed with its own light. Her scales bore scars where clan marks had been burned away, but she no longer saw them as signs of shame. They were proof she had survived, proof she had found her way to something better. Owen joined her, carrying a basket of vegetables that would have been impossible 6 months ago. "Thinking about your clan?" he asked. "Thinking about my family," Rasha corrected, gesturing at the settlement behind them. This one, below their feet, the crystal network pulsed in patterns that incorporated dozens of biological signatures. Each being who worked this soil added their own light to the whole. Each difference made them stronger. Rasha had been cast out for not fitting the mold. Now she realized the mold had been too small all along. Here, in this impossible community on a living world, there was room for everyone to grow.